Alright guys, today we're going to work with the quadratic formula. Can't stress enough, write this formula down. Okay, it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2 times a. I'm hoping you guys are noticing that this part that's in the square root we worked with yesterday, and that was that discriminant inside where we decided how many types of solutions we had. So really we're just going to do negative b plus or minus the square root of the determinant and then 2 divided by a. So here's our first problem we're going to work with. Okay, still follows the same formula that this is a, this is b, this is c. So once you identify those, then you're just going to start substituting or plugging in. So for this one we got a negative b, 6 is our b, so it's a negative 6. Plus or minus, and you'll see why in a second that's important. Put your square root. So we're going to put b squared, so 6 squared. Minus 4, remember this is a constant, it's going to be in every problem we do. Times your a, which is a 1 in this case. Times your c, which is a 5. Then it's over 2 times your a, which in this case is a 1. I'm going to go over here a little bit. So negative 6 isn't going to change. So it's negative 6 plus or minus. I'm going to start breaking down my square root a little bit. So 6 squared is 36. I'm going to hold on a second. I think that'll still be a minus because let's see. Negative 4 times a 1 is a negative 4. Negative 4 times a 5 is a negative 20. Over 2 times 1, which is a 2. Now let's break it down even further. So 36 minus 20, I believe is a 16. So 6 plus or minus square root of a 16 over 2. Now first we're going to find out what the square root of 16 is. If you guys use your card, you know it's 4. So now this is, I'm going to come over here, 6 plus or minus 4 over 2. Now this is where we're going to break it up into two problems. Because if you think about it, here's our determinant is at 16. And yesterday we looked at it and said if it was over 16, we had two real solutions. So here's how we're going to get it, this plus or minus. We're going to split it up. So it's going to become 6 plus 4 divided by 2. Then 6 minus 4 divided by 2. That's how we're going to get our two solutions. And actually, I forgot, this is a negative, this is a negative, this is a negative. I forgot to pull that over. Okay, so make sure you guys do that. So now here I've got a negative 6 plus 4. So that's a negative 2 over a 2. So negative 2 divided by 2, my first one for a real solution, is a negative 1. Now I've got a negative 6 minus 4, so that's going to make a bigger negative. So that's a negative 10 divided by 2. So my next one for a real solution is a negative 5. Negative numbers are real solutions. Those imaginary ones, like I said, we'll get to in Algebra 2 for many of you next year. So let's take a look at another one. Here's my A. So my A is a 1. My B is the negative 3. And my C is the negative 18. Keep those negatives with it. So I'm going to look back up at my formula. I know you guys can't see it, but hopefully you wrote it down so you can see it. Some people like to write in the formula right there and then just plug it in as they see it. Now, we said it was a negative B. Okay, make sure you put that negative there. And hold the negative 3. Then do your plus or minus. Then in your square root, it's b squared. So in this case, it's a negative 3 squared minus 4 times that 1 for the A and times the negative 18 for the C. Then it's going to be over 2 times A, which is 2 times 1. So let's start breaking this, putting this together. So think about this. We have a -1 and a -3. So that's going to make it a +3. And that makes a big difference. So make sure that if you have a negative number for b, that it still stays negative, because it's going to actually turn to be a positive. And then we got plus or minus. Let's start breaking this apart in here. -3 times a -3 is a 9. Maybe it's going to be minus. If it's not, I can change that easily. So this is a -4. And a -4 times a -18, means it'll be positive. And then when I work that out, that's a positive 72 over 2. So now let's work the inside. Get a little further. Plus or minus, a 9 plus 72 is 81, and that's over 2. Now I can save myself a little writing here. I know this is going to be 9, so I'm going to just cross it out and say it's 9. So now when I go to figure it out, I can do 3 plus 9 over 2. And then 3 minus 9 over 2. Save myself a little writing there. Nothing wrong with that. So then this one's going to be 3 plus 9, which is 12 over 2. That's a 6. Then 3 minus 9 is a -6 over 2. -6 divided by 2 is a -3. So there's that solution set. And once again, 81 became our determinant. And 81 is bigger than 0. So again, we have 2 real solutions. All right, let's look at one more. Now you will run into some where you got to do some extra work, but for the most part, most of them will be working out perfectly nice. So in this case, still again, it's an A, it's a B, or it's a C. Okay, so plugging them in. So I have a -B, so -9 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 9 squared, minus 4 times the a. And this time the a actually has a number besides 1. So it's going to be 2 times the c. And then over 2 times 2 for 2 times a. So kind of breaking it down a little bit more. So we got to do the inside of here in the square root. So I'm going to do -9 plus or minus. So 9 times 9 is 81. I'm just going to put a minus. I can always change that. It's easy to change from a minus to a plus. So it's 4 times 2, which I believe is 8. And then 8 times this 4, so it's -32. Then over the 2 times 2, which is 4. So looking at it again, I'll do the -9 plus or minus. 81 minus 32 is the square root of 49 over 4. Okay, so once again, 49 is greater than 0, so we're going to have 2 real solutions. I know that the square root, because now I got to square root it, will be 7. Save myself a little work here. So now I'm going to write it out that it's 9 plus 7 divided by 4. Sorry about that. 9 minus 7 divided by 4. So let's take a look. So this is 9 plus 7, which I believe, whoops, I did it again. I forgot the negatives. My fault, guys. So don't be me. Remember the negatives. I know that'll be an easy mistake. As you see, I'm doing it. So -9 plus 7 will be a -2 over 4. It's a fraction. You can keep it, turn it into decimal, whichever you're comfortable with. I'm going to reduce it. So this is going to be a -1/2 as part of my solution. Now here, a -9 minus 7 is going to make a bigger negative. So -16 over 4. The -16 divided by 4 means that I now have a -4. So there's that solution set for that one. Okay, guys, so now we've come to this point of we've been doing a lot. We've been solving so many of these by different ways. You're going to come to a thing that says, and especially on your worksheet, solve by any method. We've done 3 different kind of methods. We've done what's called factoring. which I'm going to show you on one. We have done the square root. Done it by square roots. And then the last one we just did was our quadratic functions, or quadratic formula. Okay, so any of these you can use to solve any of these type of problems we've been looking at. It's what you're comfortable with. I've shown you a bunch with the quadratic formula, so let's take a look. I've got this one. It says x squared minus 64 is equal to 0. Anytime you see a 0 and an equal sign means you have to solve for something. I see this as I know a 64 is a perfect square root. I could do this. I'm going to add 64, add 64. Now I've got x squared is equal to 64. Square root it. X is equal to, and if you guys remember, you'll get 2 and 8 and a negative 8. Okay, so there's the square root. Now the last way we've done it is the factoring, where I see this and I could do the x. C goes on top for 36. The 12 goes in the middle. Remember, I'm looking for something here. The multiplies get me this. I know 6 and 6 will. So I've got an x plus 6, x plus 6. And they're both equal to 0. And since they're both the same, they'd be the same. So x plus 6 is equal to 0. I just got to do it once. Minus 6, minus 6. So in this case, the only one they're going to have is a negative 6. All right, guys, make sure you wrote down the formula. Make sure you've kind of taken some notes so you know what you're doing. Any questions, please ask.